Welcome back. You're watching News Sources. I asked you on Twitter, do you think the manual backup is a setup to rig 2017 elections? And Karanza on Twitter says, parallel voting is prelude to anarchy since it means results should only go one way. Ndegwa says, when you hear an ICT professional talk of manual backup, then you realize we have a problem. So, a problem, everyone. Thank you very much for your comments. You can always tweet us at TimSmart, at KT News, #NewsSources. Let's move on now. Well, adding their voice to the national conversation, the Council of Governors has opposed manual backup, raising intentions to rig next year's poll using that loophole. Governors say they wish to see a system that is pure electronically and a backup that is electronically as well. Take a listen.
The real issue is the voters who don't turn up, and we end up voting for them manually, identifying them manually. That is our problem. These others are not basically our problem. You would find millions of Kenyans having voted and they never turned up. So let's run away from situations in which it can that can actually destroy our country, and that is where we are having difficulties.
All right, it's called Emeritus Chairman of the Council of Governors. He was there with the Deputy Chairman and the legal representative. And the question, they say that this is very simple. When you allow a manual system, you basically are giving a clean swoop to anyone and everyone within their purview during the election day to vote for everyone else, 100%, 99%. And in his submission, he says that he's been into voting stations in Rift Valley where it was decided 99% is the voter turnout, and that's it. And that happened. And from their view, electronic way is the only way to stop that. Any truth in that?
Yes. Electronic way, there's no way you will say that someone who died 10 years ago will come and vote. Electronic, it will identify you on the material day. It's like logging in on a door. Yeah. Or going at the airport and being screened. They take your iris or face. If you're not there, you're not there. There's no two ways about it. Yes. But if it's manual, I have a list that I'll check and say, this one also was there, this one was, to make the number fit. So I think if we want peace for the country, the peace after every election, we must make sure dead voters don't wake up from their graves and come and vote. And that's a fact.
Or the voters who don't show up to vote.
Yeah, smart. It is very sad that the politicians we always accuse of rigging are the ones that are now coming up and owning on how they do these things best. So if these are the people who play the game and they know how to play it best, then where do we stand in as Kenyans who don't know and how to manipulate these results? I think the best way is just the electronic way. If you come, you vote. If you're not there, nobody comes to vote for you.
Yeah, and it answers every question. Because, you know, one of the things is this animal called 50+1%. For example, an election has just happened. So you wait for IEBC to come and tell you, you know, for example, it's called a coefficient, right, in mathematics, that 14 million people voted in these elections. Now, from there, you start calculating the 50+1 threshold, right? So it is important that we know that evening when you go to sleep, you know 14 million people voted. But you see, in the absence of some kind of electronic or some surety, it gives room to keep on extending the numbers from maybe 14 million to 16 million, 18 million, to the point where at some point I think we shall have a situation where we shall be told that the people who voted are even exceed those who are registered as voters. So we need to deal with this problem because we are also tired of having some running battles during election year. Or so piling food in the house because an election is coming. We need to deal with these things. That you know, and one of the reasons why we have a problem is, I think ODM now looks clever than it was last time. It was told, where is the evidence? So this time I'm sure they have their eye on the ball and they're not relenting on this.
And if we go to this 2013 elections and the Supreme Court, you know, the decision, when IEBC came with 3-4 registers.
Yes.
And it was impossible to up to date to say which register actually was relied on. And that could have been sorted if it was a pure electronic system, wouldn't it have?
That would have been sorted. I was privileged to cover the 2013 election, and I remember when I was in some station in Langata, and people were coming in, and they were like, I think, having 2 or 3 registers, and somebody will come and the name is not there, and they go to another one and they're not checking, and then you'll hear the polling officer saying, let us call the center to just confirm if the name is there, then we allow the person to vote. So now if we have that leeway to just even make a call, which might not even be a call that is genuine, then everybody will vote. But if we have the electronic system, you are able to check. There's no way you can say my name is not in the system and I'm a registered voter.
Okay, let's hang on to that. And the contradiction on the government of the day position has not escaped some keen eyes. Just last week, Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i was widely praised for his competence in handling examinations in the country. Matiang'i said electronic transmission of exam results, worked perfect to curb cheating in schools and was invaluable. ICT CS, Joe Musheru, the very same week, was busy arguing for manual competence over electronic. What gives?
We will then have a paper copy. This is a paper copy of the clean electronic verified register of voters. It will be identical, and it will ensure that we just have a duplicate. The manual system or the paper copy is not a replacement.
We installed an ICT center in every marking center, which means we were able to stream the grades in real time. Every day, whatever was marked, we were able to stream it to a central server system, and it means that when the last marker puts their pen down, you can actually get your results. And technology is here. It's important that we embrace technology and use technology to move forward.
All right, the contradiction, all right? It's the electronic system stopped exam cheating, all right? It made the system to be very competent, and it worked.
Yeah.
That's, of course, the different setup. It's different people. But in election matters, we need a manual backup because we cannot trust
to stop
electronic system.
But they serve the same government that has a policy of a digital government. I think that we have I can say, is a person speaking from both sides of his mouth. Okay? When this one says the other one contradicts himself. If you look at Joe Musheru when he was speaking, you can see a lot of, he was really struggling. These are things he can't comprehend. It's like he's been given a statement to read. He knows back in his mind that what he's saying is a lie. I have a young guy, a friend of mine who is young and is doing IT. In fact, he was ashamed when he heard the minister speak. He was telling me in IT, they create redundancies. You don't create a manual list. When a system, you know you are on 2G and you want to, or you are on 4G and you know that the 4G can fail, you create a redundancy that can downgrade even to 3G automatically. You don't have to go and print another one to be there. In fact, you'll be just doing manual.
What was he doing at Google?
Yes, I don't know what he was doing at Google. But he wanted just to be compliant to that narrative
Let's see
of manual voting.
if we can dissect this.
It's a shame.
Yes, we can dissect this.
But you see, even what is sad is that the CS, who now every Kenyan is praising, that is Matiang'i, was formerly the CS of ICT. And I remember when you were there, he was even able to deal with the media and to shift from analog to digital.
Digital, thanks to him.
Yes, thanks to him, by force. So why is it that...
And we are glad that we're digital.
And we are glad, because so many stations are now able to come up and you are getting jobs as journalists. But now, they're taking us back to manual, then what is it? Is it selective when it comes to elections? We go manual. When it comes to progressive development, we go to digital. Maybe the two CSs can tell us better.
How do we marry the two things? But in elections, and obviously the situation is very different, we need a manual backup, but when you're talking about exam, it's managed to sort out a problem.
There's no marrying. Let us go to the... Anyway, I think we have been skirting around the discussion. Let us go to the starting point. How did this amendment even come to the floor of the House? It was through force. It was through a tipper. Guys were, I saw the speaker looking like a man who does not even know what he's doing. He's like in a Gikomba market transacting parliamentary business. When I started covering parliament, we were told something like a house of order, procedure, traditions, and all those kind of things. But when I saw the amendment being pushed by force, now, the way the amendment is brought tells you a story. Tells you a story that we want to achieve a certain end by all means necessary. And that's what we are doing. There's nothing marrying here. And for the CS in charge of ICT, I think there's only sympathy from me because one is too young, and I am sure even his boss does not listen to him. He's only ordered to go and do certain things. Do you think Uhuru listens to, can this man come with an appointment to the cabinet and Uhuru listens? He's too young for that, really, to be listened to.
He's a cabinet secretary.
I don't think age is a matter.
It is. Experience comes with age, my dear.
Okay.
Yes.
If we go back to the bill that we are discussing, remember I said this bill was a bill that had been there since 2015. So you might find somebody just woke up and the things that they were not comfortable with in the current election law, they decided to lump them up. Because if you look at this bill, it even has the qualification of MPs and MCAs, which is already passed and it's before the Senate. So you see, there are clauses that we...
Don't cloud this matter. The issue of ICT was agreed upon during the joint parliamentary. Right?
Yes.
And it was agreed.
And even the president signed.
Yes.
That is what I'm saying, that this bill has reintroduced things that are already in law.
Gentlemen, I need to move on. The IEBC selection panel has rubbished claims of unsuitability of some of the commissioners they selected. Members of the panel say they never received any petition against any of the candidates they nominated. They ask those who have raised issues against some of the nominees to present them before Parliament when they come up. So, question about, who the people who have been selected. Some news reports claim the ones who were least qualified or got the least marks in the interviews were the ones who were selected. What's the problem with that?
I think, personally, when I looked at the whole report and looked at what was happening, I think this panel was looking for commissioners who will be friendly to incumbent. So obviously, you won't get someone who is bold and straightforward with his mind to work in such a commission. So that's what they were looking for. That's why they were going to the least qualified.
But they interviewed these people.
Yes,
I mean, all of them.
them.
Yes.
But why are these issues rising up? They didn't do a proper job. If they did a proper job, we wouldn't be asking questions today.
I don't think it's even about a proper job. We should also start asking about the way we do our interviews and select people. Because if these people were able to go through interviews in the public glare, and only for now people to start raising issues after some people have been nominated, then even us, we are not being honest to ourselves.
No, but I saw people like Kimeu, Aura, dropped. People who are competent. People who have been handling
There's
elections.
a guy who got 80%,
yes,
by the way.
These are fellas who you can look at their track record and say it's clean.
I think the question should be, why did they drop the other people? And I think we should have evidence to back up that claim that indeed a person who got 80% was dropped and the person who got 20% was
Look at you. There's the ranking. In fact, your paper your newspaper ran the rankings of all these candidates. So which evidence are you asking for? Are you in court, madam? Please excuse us.
So what is your point?
What is your point?
The point is, for me again, it's just an extension of the mischief you have seen in the manual nonsense coming back here. That where, with all due respect, the president chooses guys who have underperformed, leaving those who performed. And the problem is that this thing is taking a trend of people's second names, right? So that a certain name, you perform well, you go nowhere. And so there's a guy who got 80%, 79%, all of those guys have been kicked out. You have a 45% guy there, 55%, who have gotten a job. This one, I will honestly take the blame to the president, not the selection panel. The selection panel, I have a problem with the composition, but it did its work with the tools that are available to them, because also many people did not take interest in this job. Like you see, we expected the big names to go for the chair, which they shunned, maybe out of this kind of shenanigans and all that. So the president has a lot of information at his disposal. I think he should have acted properly and in the interest of the greater good.
And again, sociologists will tell you, when you want to employ people and you go for the least performer, it means you are looking for someone you can twist. Not someone who will reason with you and tell you this, no.
Still, if you are to be strict with the law, yes. We say that the selection panel does its job, then give the president names where he can choose from. So
and you choose the least performers?
We didn't say that. The law didn't say that. So it is the president's prerogative, isn't it?
Yes, because the president was supposed to get 9 names.
Yes.
9 names for commissioners and 2 names for the chairman.
So are you rewarding competence or are
It's
you
not about-
rewarding
No.
mediocrity?
No, you
danger-
give me 2 names, I pick the one I want. You give
It's
me
okay.
9
So-
names,
so
I
it's not
pick
in the law, but the
the
danger of
Does
the
that
argument.
mean that now all the least performers were the one chosen?
No, let me say this.
That's why
Let me
I'm
say it's a
saying,
prerogative.
let's
You are
say,
right. It's a
yes,
prerogative.
the
That's
selection
is
No,
it?
yes, I
Isn't
can't
it?
argue with it.
Yes.
You are right. The problem with your analysis is that you want us to lump everything in the law. The law must guide every small thing, even how you dress your socks,
No,
which is
no.
not. It's common sense to the president.
What would be the point of then giving the president 2 names and say to pick the big one? We should have said we will give the president only the top one and then you select that one.
Because
We
we,
give you choice.
believe as a country that the person exercising the office of the president is a person full of wisdom and he makes good
Hang on to that thought.
You'll reward the
Hang
best.
on to that thought. And finally, you might have seen this video that went viral yesterday. And a female police officer forcefully handling a female driver over some supposed disagreement. Well, that video opens up a can of worms for speed guns, police checks, and the rights you have as a citizen. Let's take a look at that clip and exactly what happened. It's going to play there on the screen, but I want to speak on it because this is a very difficult conversation because the police say they're investigating this matter, investigating the lady police. We don't know this, the circumstances leading to this video, but we have account from both sides.
Yeah.
How do we resolve it and the questions that it raises?
One, I really don't expect police officers to behave the way the police woman behaved, because a police officer and me, Araya, we are 2 sets of people. One is a trained officer who should act with restraint and according to the law, because anyway he's a law enforcer. And there should be a difference between a raya and a cop. When a cop behaves as if he's a militia man on the street,
But
then
the
it
questions,
becomes
again,
anarchy.
again we come back to the law.
Irrespective of what the lady had done.
Again, we come back to the law that the police are allowed to, if you resist arrest, they have to use reasonable force.
Is that reasonable force
hang on,
of
no, no.
undressing someone?
Let me get
It's not,
this.
it's not,
Over speed.
it's not defined.
Yes.
Over speed.
It's not defined, but again, the Bill of Rights says everybody has a right. Just like the officer has the right to arrest you when you break the law, the alleged offender also has a right to be treated decently. So what we saw was not decent at all.
Okay, let me be decent to Ruko. 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Yeah, I agree with what you said. The better part of the story, we don't know. I'm also not happy, but I thought that as a public officer, the police woman shouldn't be so personal. This is not a personal job anyway. Just
But we don't know.
She should be
Yeah,
more
we don't-
reasonable.
we-
yeah,
don't know
but
the
the greater
circumstances leading to it.
responsibility
Irrespective
lies with her. The greater
Yes,
responsibility to
irrespective.
behave decently.
My director said that is more than 10 seconds. Well, we asked you, do you think the manual backup is set up to rig 2017 elections? And 63% of you think absolutely yes, 31% of you think absolutely not, and 6% of you would not care. I wonder if these are the ones who show up to go and vote, or the ones we need to vote for. These news sources. Thank you very much for your company. We're back here. See you again. Let's do this all over again tomorrow. Up next is Kate and Prime with Yvonne Okwara.